Hello again. It's very good to see you. I have to start out today's video by admitting something, and it may come off as a very big surprise, but I haven't read every book in the world. I'm mostly kidding, but I'm only 22 years old. There has not been much time while my feet have walked this earth. I haven't had that much time to read important books. I've only really been seriously reading kind of as an adult again for the past maybe 2-3 years. And so at this point in time, I really haven't read all of the books that I want to read. So I have a list today of 10 novels that I believe are incredibly important for me personally to read, whether that be because they are big on the literary scene or whether I am reading them for my personal growth or my personal affirmation. These 10 novels are simply important for me to read within the foreseeable future. These books are all within the classics scene, spanning from all the way from ancient Rome until I believe like the 1950s, about so I have a really wide range of years and decades here. But they are just books that I view as important for myself. So I'm going to walk you through each of these books. I'm going to tell you what it's about, even though most of these are pretty famous and you probably already know what they're about. And I'm also going to tell you why I believe they are important for me to read. Because some are literally just important, but some are important, I think, in my own way. So I hope you stick with me. The first book on this list, and one that I am absolutely 100% going to read at the very beginning of the new year, is The Count of Monte Cristo. This is one of those very, very large classics that holds so much acclaim, and I just can't wait to discover what's inside of it. But overall, The Count of Monte Cristo is about a man who is wrongfully imprisoned, and while he's in prison, he hears about a hidden treasure. And so he wants to break out of prison and find this treasure. That is, I think, the overall storyline here. But I know that this is a story of wit and adventure and love and romance and everything that the human condition has to offer, allegedly, is inside of this story. So this is one that I am just very excited to get to, because everybody who has read this at least has it in their top 10 books of all time. I have never heard a single, even slightly negative word about The Count of Monte Cristo. But I think something that is possibly holding me back is the fact that this is about 1,500 pages, and especially since I have this hardcover version, this thing weighs about 30 pounds. So the thought of lugging this around with me maybe isn't the most exciting thing in the world. But I know that this is a book that a lot of people simply fly through and cannot put down because it is just exciting and fun. And so even though it is very, very big, I still don't have the daunting feeling of, oh, this book is so big, it is going to take me so long. Because I know that this is going to be exciting through every single moment. So there's imprisonment, dramatic escape, and just finding revenge and hunting down revenge. So I am up for a swashbuckling story of adventure and wit and love and romance. So I'm very excited to get to this one. The second book on this list is The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. And if you paid attention in your American history class in high school, you will know what this book is about. But if you don't, this is probably America's first really, really powerful piece of muckraking journalism that caused reform, or caused outrage from the public to then get reform for the meatpacking industry during the Industrial Revolution kind of phase in America. And as I've mentioned on this channel previously, I'm going to be a high school history teacher. So I'm getting my master's degree, I'm taking classes, I'm doing my student teaching, doing the brave work, doing the noble work. And so I have made copious amounts of lessons about the jungle, but I have yet to ever read it. So I think before I sign my name on the dotted line, getting a contract to be a teacher, I need to read this book or else I'm simply a poser. Because who am I to make lesson plans about the jungle, having not actually read it fully myself? And so I know that this is a bit of a disgusting, disturbing work because a lot of this is just about the horrible conditions within specifically meatpacking plants, and it is a lot about rat poop, rat poison, nobody's washing their hands, arms and fingers are getting cut off and going into the sausage, all sorts of things. So I know that this isn't going to be light reading or fun reading, maybe like the Count of Monte Cristo would be, but I do think that this is very important for my personal and career growth because I don't want to be a poser. So I plan to get to this as soon as possible. The third book on this list might not have changed the world as a whole, but I think that it will change my personal world because I would like to read the entire Lonesome Dove series. I am holding up Comanche Moon as a placeholder, but there are 4 total books in the series, and I've only read Lonesome Dove, so obviously I need to get to the other 3. In publishing order, this is the last one published, but in like chronological order, Comanche Moon happened right before Lonesome Dove. So this is the only one that I have found secondhand. I have yet to find the other books, but I think that I would like to read them in publishing order. So I have a ways to go to acquire these books, but at as soon as possible, I would like to read the entire Lonesome Dove series because I simply need to get back into the world of Gus and Call and just cowboy adventure. And so in this book, Gus and Call are kind of getting into their middle years where Gus is engaging with the love of his life, Clara, or Clara maybe, where which that is a big point of tension or at least thought within Lonesome Dove. So it'll be interesting to see what they were doing right before Lonesome Dove. Because Lonesome Dove is maybe my favorite book of all time, probably second favorite, but I have heard, sadly, that the rest of the Lonesome Dove books don't quite hold a candle to Lonesome Dove, but I still do think that it's important to complete the series of one of my favorite books of all time. So as soon as I can get my hands on the other 2 books that I don't have yet, I will be very happily reading the entire Lonesome Dove series. The fourth thing that I wanted to talk about was both the Iliad and the Odyssey. These are 2 of the absolute foundational texts for literature as a whole. Some of the oldest stories that we have written down, and it is written in, epic poetry style, which is something that tends to turn me away from stories, but again, this is just one of those important ones that I absolutely have to get to. Whenever I was getting my undergraduate degree in history, I had to read bits and pieces of this, and I do know the overall overarching story behind this, so none of this will come as a surprise, but I have never actually had to read the whole thing cover to cover, and I think that that's an important thing to do, because this will really give me a window in which to look through and see how the just ancient people viewed leadership and fate and the gods and love and war and every valiant trait that ancient people really valued within the Greco-Roman area. So the Iliad does take place during the Trojan War, but it doesn't cover the entire Trojan War. It just covers a few really key weeks that were really influential in the outcome of said war. And this is a story that, though obviously it is about war and battle, it's not really about battle strategy. Instead, it's more about human emotions. It's about pride and vengeance and revenge and valiance. And I think it's really interesting how the Iliad can blend together both historical kind of rememberings and understandings with mythology and with poetry. I just think it's a really interesting blend of ideas and concepts and purpose. And what I think is really imperative to understand about the Iliad is that it doesn't glorify war like a lot of ancient texts did and a lot of just war media does. It doesn't glorify war. It instead shows the destruction of families and areas and lifetimes, just the absolute utter destruction of those things. And so just overall, the Iliad and the Odyssey are just really important things that everybody should read at some point. And so although I already know the story, and although I have already read bits and pieces of this, I do know that I must get to both the Iliad and the Odyssey. And I know that translators, especially of ancient works like this, translators can really make or break the experience of whether or not you will enjoy reading this. So if I am picking up on the fact that I'm not enjoying the flow of this story, I know that I should probably pick up a different translation, but I did find this one for a quarter, so I am going to try this one out first. But overall, I plan to someday, some point soon, read the Iliad and the Odyssey. Next, I wanted to talk about The Grapes of Wrath. Now, this is just one that I think is a must-read for overall empathy because it dials in on one family during the Great Depression and kind of the Dust Bowl era and just the struggles of absolute, utter economic struggle. And I think that few novels kind of have the ability to make you feel so close to your heart, make you feel economic struggle. And I know that if anybody can make you feel anything, it is absolutely John Steinbeck. So just a side note on this bucket list, I do hope to, again, as soon as possible, I do hope to read all of John Steinbeck's works because he has this year really become one of my favorite authors, easily one of my favorite authors of all time. And so while Grapes of Wrath is definitely the biggest work and the most important work of his that I want to get to, I would still like to get to The Pearl or The Grapes, or The Pearl and Travels with Charlie, which I have behind me, and just overall all of his works. I need to get to them. But I know that this is just a great work of American thought and American ideals in just understanding economic hardship and migration and endurance and vitality in just ways that I need to hear Steinbeck's thoughts on this. So there's nothing more that I can say other than Steinbeck is a master. Every single word that he puts down on paper is absolutely and utterly masterful. So I need to get to his most important that I have yet to read work. And another one of the extremely lengthy works that I need to get to is Anna Karenina. I plan to start this 2 books from now. So probably in December, I will read Anna Karenina. I've been saying it all year that I'm going to read this. I'm finally going to read it. So Anna Karenina is one of the biggest works that came out of Russia probably ever. And it's supposed to have this gorgeous, immersive Russian atmosphere to it with trains and ballrooms and snowy escapades all in this really lush detail. And so as a enjoyer of the Russian works, I need to get to easily one of the most important of Russia. And so overarchingly, I think that Anna Karenina is kind of at its heart a love story, but it should dig much, much deeper. It's about society and morality and a search for overall meaning and passion. And it is set kind of between 2 perspectives, I think, or at least 2 kind of plot lines, which is A, Anna Karenina, and kind of her search for more in life. And then Levin's kind of like quiet worldview altering, I suppose. Now, again, I haven't read it, so I don't know, but that is my understanding of what it's about. And just overall, Tolstoy as an author is just one I need to get to as well. So I'm very excited to pick this up next month. And following up on that Tolstoy point, no bucket list would be complete without War and Peace on it, because I think that this is a book that everybody sees as important to read at some point in time, but the 1,500 pages are a bit of a put-off. But I know that this is the type of book that I will love once I finally pick it up, and I plan to hopefully next year. We'll see. But this is a book that, again, just captures kind of all of humanity within its very, very many pages. And it has battles and balls and philosophical thought and love stories. Like, this is the type of novel that I know encapsulates so many things. And so again, this is kind of a story where I can feel fulfilled because history is kind of meeting up with this humanity. So it's set during the Napoleonic Wars. And so about half the time you're getting these intricate battle scenes, and then the other half of time you're listening about the lush, posh life of these aristocrats. And it's going to kind of, with that historical setting, I will understand more about the human condition and human thought and human patterns and just the way that people act and believe about things. And I know that over time, you kind of get the whole story of these people's lives, and so you can see them grow and fall apart and change or stay stagnant. I don't know. But again, this is just one of those books that is so unbelievably human, so unbelievably big, and so unbelievably important. So this is a book that I hope to get to ASAP. And the last 3 books I don't have in my possession yet. So I have my own little faux copy here. But another book that I absolutely need to get to is Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman? I don't know. But I have heard this described as the Soviet War and Peace, which, if I love Russian literature and I love war novels, this is right up my alley. And this is also one that is, I think, well over 1,000 pages, and just something that is absolutely and completely right up my alley. So this is largely centered on the Battle of Stalingrad, and so I think that there's a prequel to this one that is just called Stalingrad, so I should also read that one too. But this is set around Stalingrad, and it is just this sweeping, character-rich, and just emotionally immersive read that is obviously set in a historical time that I'm very interested in. And so this is just supposedly a really unflinching look on totalitarianism. And so he looks at the Nazis and he looks at the Soviets, and with just such brutal clarity that I need to hear about. And so just overall, on the human aspect, while this book is looking at war, it is additionally kind of showing that the value of single individual human lives are still wildly and vastly important, even, during a time where life can appear disposable, especially to totalitarian states. And additionally, this book was banned in the USSR. If the authorities had to confiscate your manuscript, that's something I have to pick up. You know that Grossman was saying something so unflinching about them that they literally had to take it. It's going to hit the spot really good. Even though this is a very daunting work because of its just dark themes and dark setting, and additionally its very, very daunting size, even though obviously not this edition, but I think that this is going to be a very rewarding and just unforgettable experience for me that I need to get to. So I put this one on my Christmas list for this year. And it has been said that everything in life can be answered by reading the Brothers Karamazov. And so this is another very large, very daunting work that I want to get to as soon as I can get my hands on a real copy. So this book, I think, is supposed to really answer all of the big questions kind of life, like morality and God and guilt and free will, and just Dostoevsky is just dropping it all on the table for you to, I suppose, make your own decision. And so this story, I believe, is set around these three brothers that have three completely polar opposite views on the world. And through these three boys, you can follow the paths that they take and follow their lines of reasoning and just understand the human condition and the human thought much, much more. And so through these three characters, Dostoevsky tackles the big questions of humanity, like I said before, about free will or God or just anything that is hard to answer. Allegedly, Dostoevsky answers it in here. And so this is just one of the most influential books ever. I mean, modern authors cite it all the time. Philosophers cite it all the time. This is just one of those huge works that is supposed to change your life. And I need my life changed by another Dostoevsky novel. So, can't wait to get to this one. And the last book on this list, and probably the most emotionally daunting of all of them, is Johnny Got His Gun. Now, this is about a World War I soldier who wakes up after a bombing. He wakes up in the hospital to find that he's lost his limbs, his eyes, his ears, his ability to talk. He has lost everything but his brain to think. So all he can do is think and remember events in the war and think about his life and think about what his life is now. And this is just one of those war stories that really makes you think more strongly about the cost of war, because obviously this is about as bad as it can get. So I know that this is one that is going to be both absolutely horrific but really deeply moving. And again, I really do enjoy war literature because as one of the greatest anti-war books ever, this is just something that I need to get to because that is a theme that I very, very much enjoy. Maybe enjoy isn't the right word, but very much gain something from. And so this is one of those books that I think is just going to make you see the world differently after you close it. And so I know that it's absolutely shorter than, I think, all of these books on this list. I think it's about 200 pages, but this is a book that is going to shake me to my core, horrify me to my core, but I think one that is going to be life-changing, I guess, would be a good way to put it. So just for the themes of war and human rights and patriotism, this is a book that I just absolutely need to get to, because those are themes that I really like to delve into, and I really enjoy the psychology of following through with a narrative on that. So, though scary, I want to read Johnny Got His Gun. After recording all of those synopsises, I'm realizing that I clearly like to get into literature that is very much war-centered and really delves into the bad parts of humanity and where humanity is struggling its hardest, like in the Great Depression or in war. But that's just what my history mind likes to do. So these are 10 books that I absolutely need to get to. I'm obviously going to get to some of them sooner than others, but there are a couple of them that I 100% plan on getting to by next year and within the next few years thereafter. I hope to complete all of these works. So I would love to hear your bucket list books. I would also love to hear if you have read any of these and enjoyed any of these, because I know that some of these in my favorite books of all time list that I posted a couple weeks ago, many people said War of Peace or Anna Karenina. And so I know that some of these books obviously are the greats. So I would love to hear your thoughts of them. I would love to hear what your bucket list items are, or what books you feel like you need to read for your own personal affirmations, your own personal wants and needs. I would just love to hear from you. I think my favorite thing about having this YouTube channel is being able to talk with you guys and reply to your comments and just talk about books with like-minded individuals. So, in the end, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this list, and maybe I gave you inspiration for your own. I'm not sure, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Sunday. See ya.